My favorite experience was probably any of the documentary units. That's really, really where I felt I shined, and also, like, definitely anything in English. I don't know if I'm allowed to give away the spoiler. I'm an English literature major, and I completely credit that from the English program here. A lot of people come for film and web and graphic design, and absolutely there's a great program here for that, but that program is really what I took out of freestyle. And my worst memory was my senior narrative, man. To this day, I cannot go back and watch it because, oh, it's so bad. Because it was one of those things where it was second semester senior year. I don't know if the schedule for when the projects like lie now is any different, but mine was second semester senior year. I had, like, we worked in partners, and I had a partner that didn't want to do a thing. So I was spread really thin. I had an actor who I didn't realize until screening committed himself to 4 other projects in my exact same film class. So we were all juggling schedules, man. That project was a mess. I mean, I'm glad I did it, but yeah. But there's good memories too, I promise. But that was the worst memory. Ugh, that project.
For my experience here at Freestyle, the thing that like gets me most is feeling like a professional with the work that I do. I have to admit, like, I've made some pretty bad stuff as well, but it was the first time that I'm like, wow, this looks like something that would be produced professionally. Like, I feel like I've graduated from the, poster board and markers and pens from regular class projects, and now I'm using software that real professionals use. So it's kind of given me a sense that, like, I've graduated from that, and now my skills are just at the next level. And another thing that Freestyle gave me was this community here, because it's a much smaller community than at high school. And over the 2 years, assuming that you all continue for the next 2 years, you'll really get to know each other better, and you get to joke around with each other. And when you're back at high school, you kind of have this unique community that you can talk with and ask questions about, like, how do you do this in Photoshop? And, hey, I was working on that. Can you help me with this? You kind of get this connection with the other students around you. That's really something that you have to appreciate after 2 years of freestyle.
So for me, my favorite memories from freestyle are always, okay, so you have this access to any equipment you want, really. The equipment you have here is kind of amazing. And it's kind of yours for the entire semester, right, to give and take. And my favorite memories are really weekends where I would go and do photo shoots or play around in the studio. Like, we did crazy projects just because we had the equipment to do them. One weekend, I poured 6,000 ladybugs on a model and took pictures. That was awesome. Another weekend, I poured 14 pounds of honey on a model and took pictures. Like, experiences like that are why you go to freestyle. You have, like, the tools to create anything.
Cool. Now, think back, if you can, when you were 4 days into freestyle and you're just about ready to take on the self-portrait unit. Can you remember back that far? Specifically, for the self-portrait unit, what kind of advice would you give the juniors about this upcoming self-portrait unit that they're kind of going to be taking on in the next month?
Make it your self-portrait. Don't try to make it anybody else's. I mean, this is a project where you definitely need to be who you are and show what you want to show. Absolutely, you need to absolutely follow your teacher's instructions with, I mean, your limits and, like, things you should try and explore as far as your new equipment and as far as new techniques, because for some of you, this might be your first time picking up a camera or sitting down at a web application, because it was my first time when I joined freestyle. So I mean, definitely use their guidance in that regard, but as far as what you want to make, just don't try to make a film that you think would, like, please or adhere to the expectations of somebody else. Like, it's a self-portrait, so make it your self-portrait. Like, that's something that's really important in this.
I remember, since I graduated most recently, I can actually remember what I was thinking when I was in this room 2 years ago. And it was that I wasn't actually thinking about the self-portrait. I was more thinking about the narrative, which was the next project. I was more excited about like the other projects that I kind of, self-portrait wasn't on my mind. So I didn't do very well in my self-portrait project. But what I realized is that since I'm a web student, I can always go back, and I did go back numerous times, and I improved that website that I had made for that project over the next 2 years. Like senior year, I was still making changes to my self-portrait website. So it may not be your finest work, but I wouldn't stress it because it's the first project. You're still learning how to use the cameras. You're still learning how to use Photoshop, Illustrator, all these things that are brand new and extremely difficult for beginners. So I would have to say, especially if you're a web student, don't worry about it. You can always change it up. You can always improve.
I'm actually really excited for all of you. It's your first time getting to, well, so I can speak for film. I guess taking out a computer is different. But like, it's your first time being able to check out a camera for like a weekend, and you can really just do anything. I think, like, I remember the first day working on my self-portrait, I sat at a park and filmed ducks swimming for like hours, and it was beyond fun. And the next day in class, we watched like the clips from the day, the dailies, and people made fun of the fact that I only shot ducks, and that was fine. But it was like really great to get to experiment. I think that's an awesome opportunity for all of you.
Okay. And then in general, for the junior year, you know, they progress from self-portrait to narrative to documentary, and then on to what we call conceptual now. It used to be called experimental, it's called conceptual now.
Oh.
Just what advice, what do you remember about those projects that you want to make sure they know about, that was important to you? Yeah.
That's a good question.
I can speak about documentary. It's a really cool opportunity to do something important, and to do something that can make a difference not just for yourself or for your classmates, but like in the external community. I did my junior year documentary about drug use in Mountain View, and it was like, there was a lot of resistance for me to do that. Of course, the school never wants to have like this film about drug use from freestyle student, right? But I felt that it was a really important issue, and I pushed for it. I ended up presenting it to like the Santa Clara County of like Department of Drugs and Alcohol at a meeting. It ended up on a few like nonprofit websites, and I felt that that was like a meaningful way to spend a few months. I would encourage like the same.
Going off of that, I think the best advice I can give, again, I'm a film student, so I can only speak for that is, well, I guess this applies to web too. I see nothing wrong with that. Definitely, like, film, especially some of the projects here. I mean, there are some where you definitely need to work alone, such as self-portrait. Do they still do the conceptual unit by themselves? Okay, that unit, and also like, but the other projects, such as like documentary, I know that you guys work in pairs, and like definitely take advantage of other people's strengths and the help that you're going to get, because the jump from working in partners on a documentary to working by yourself your senior year is a really big leap. Definitely work off of each other and, you know, find help in one another, because when you enter the film industry, you never work alone. You always have a team of people that you all need to get along with and work off each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I feel like you really need to hone that skill right now while you have the chance. Additionally, for the documentary unit, I feel like it's really important not to take an easy route. I'm sorry if this was one of your ideas, but I feel like every single year that I was at Freestyle, which was only 2, but it was enough, somebody always did their documentary on like
The candy shop.
that
Yeah.
or marching band or something that was just really, really easy for them to go down the street or go to their extracurricular, shoot some frames, shoot some footage, and come back. It's like, do you really want to look back on your project that you spent a lot of time on and a lot of energy on it and being like, you know, I really just did that because it was convenient for me? Like, I don't think a lot of people really create great art based on what's convenient or what's easy. So, I mean, really take risks, because you should take the risks now while you still have access to this equipment, because when you're out of Freestyle, this equipment is like $1,000 a day to rent. So have the fun now.
Easier. And like she said, it's really important that you find an organization that's really interesting. You can't just say, well, look down the street, there's this store that does this. I know there was one that when it was finished and the book was published, or, you know, that was printed out, I just looked at it and I'm like, I can't imagine anybody who would actually want to pick that up and read it. So you're really going to have to look hard, but if you find the right organization for your documentary, it will make all the difference. And another just general word of advice for all of you, because whether it's film or web students, is that like the most important tool that I've ever learned here at Freestyle was Photoshop. So pay attention to Miss P, because when she's teaching, sometimes it might be boring, like, oh, cut out the rubber duck. But if you don't get those skills down junior year, you're going to be struggling your senior year, and you'll use Photoshop for everything in films. You want to cut out things, put them in your film. You use them for your websites to make graphics. You use them in design to make, you know, your books, your projects. So I would really pay attention to what Miss P says.
So Kevin, what was your documentary project?
My documentary project was the Living Classroom organization, which does gardens in the Los Altos and Mountain View School District for teaching and like teaching students using gardens and incorporating that into math and science lessons.
What were you most proud of for that?
Well, I think I was most proud of my website for that one, because it was the first website that I made that year that like looked kind of professional. It had kind of gone away from the repeating backgrounds and random graphics to more of a unified theme. So that was where I really, that was my first like really proud website that I had made.
Lana, what was your documentary project?
My documentary project for junior year was on Palo Alto Bowl, because it was still up and running at that time. It's gone now, but it was about how they were facing impending bulldozing and how what they were doing to try and keep it up and running.
And what kind of, tell us about the relationships you built through those people.
Yeah, actually what I'm most proud of in that project is that we overcame a lot of obstacles, because me and my film partner, his name was Mihal, I loved working with him. Really great experience with my peers. We tried to get any employee at that bowling alley to speak with us, and they wanted nothing to do with our project. Like, we even like emailed back and forth with the owner, and then she said, fine, I'll do an interview. We got there that day, and she's like, why is this camera here? I don't want to be filmed. And we're like, we explained at least 3 times in the email that this is a film project. Okay, this isn't going to work out. Thanks for your time. So at that point, what we had to do was we had to go out in the bowling alley and say, hi, is anybody here on a regular basis? And a couple of people were like, yeah. And I'm like, would any of you be willing to just sit down for 10 minutes and just talk to us? Because we're having a really bad day and we're trying to make this video happen. And one of the people were like, yeah, I will. And we got the greatest interview out of her. It was so heartfelt. She was like somebody that had been bowling at Palo Alto Bowl for like 40 years and was like devastated that the bowling alley was like facing its demise. And she was basically just like, I swear I'm going to move out of the Bay Area when Palo Alto Bowl was, oh my God, it was the greatest interview. We had so much fun with her. And then we ended up getting the guy that started that big Facebook petition to keep Palo Alto Bowl running. We ended up getting him. So, I mean, even though it was a lot of obstacles in the beginning, because seriously, none of those people wanted to speak with us, it ended up being a really great project. And honestly, like looking back on it, that's probably my favorite thing that I've done here. Because whenever I watch those interviews, I'm just like, wow, those people just spoke to us on a whim, and they were awesome.
So a negative became a huge positive.
Huge positive, absolutely. It's definitely just running with it. If you have an obstacle, say, okay, that sucks, let's keep going. Because you really can't do anything else about that. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Did you end up saving it?
No, it's apartments now.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but I mean, yeah, my documentary is still something I'm proud of, but a lot of it was just out of our control, so.
And Danny, you talked about your documentary. Can you talk about a little more about what you did?
Yeah, so in my like outside of school life, I saw a lot of drug use in Mountain View and was like very interested in investigating more. I saw how it could be harmful, but also how people enjoyed it. Like I saw both sides, and I like wanted I wanted to do a documentary on this. I'm like super clean. I've never done anything. And my mom was like, supportive about this idea that I had to do this for school. What we ended up compromising was that all of the drug use I would film would happen at home. So she could be there and she could regulate. So we had like all of a sudden like a house that smelled a lot like weed, which was very funny. At the time, though, I was working with a nonprofit in Los Altos called Chase, and they were specifically talking about cocaine. And like, we would meet every Wednesday morning with policemen in the area and with like government officials and like local governments. And some of the information that I was collecting there, like with the documentary, was like very interesting when it tied into what we were planning for like citywide campaigns. It was like a really valuable experience.
Excellent. So now think back to your narrative project, right? Your story that you wrote. Think about that. Tell us what your... So the narrative project for you juniors is going to be the second project, right after, probably in November, December, right around there. We can take that on. So tell us a little bit about the story you wrote and the struggles and how you overcame it, and you know, how did the story change, if it did, and etc. So let's start with Kevin.
Oh, okay. So the story I wrote was about a software developer and his friend and problems with the guy's mother. And I'm actually not too proud of the story itself, but I am proud of like the work that I put into making it into an animation. I really went all out for that project. I've never worked harder on a project, and I know nobody else has really worked that hard for this specific project. I know one of my friends, senior year, he did just about as much work for the senior year animation, but the biggest struggle for that project was finding the time to do the animation, right? Because it's easy to make a Flash animation where one thing moves at a time, and you know, it's like, okay, technically it's an animation, but it's really difficult to get an animation that's kind of more engaging than just a character that's, like, say, I know last year they had characters that were like rocks or bubbles or something like that were not complex at all, and it's really easy to do those, but the hardest thing was to trying to add a little bit of realism to the animation. So I spent like way too much time making it look good, but in the end it really did look amazing. So
Yes, it was very, very good. Alana, do you remember your story?
Unfortunately, man. Sorry. Like the narrative unit was not my jam. So basically what happened was I was with my film partner, a guy named Parker. We ended up being really great friends out of it. Basically, he had an awesome idea for a story. It was about a guy that has a UPS route, and he drives one of the trucks, and he keeps hearing this ticking noise, and he thinks that he's like delivering a bomb, but then it becomes like a big psychological thriller because he doesn't know if it's in his mind. I love that story, and I really wanted to run with it. And then we sat down with our film teacher, Miss Kay, and then she's like, guys, how are you going to get a UPS truck? And how are you going to film inside of No, this is impossible. I'm sorry, but you can't do this. And we're like, no, horrible. And then we went with my idea, which it was one of those things where when I wrote the story in English, I'm just not that good at creative writing. I'm really not. And I'd be the first to admit it. I wrote a story about like a girl who finds out that her boyfriend is smoking, even though he says he quit. It was something just so cliche. And it's something that I definitely could have spent more time on, but we fell in love with his idea so much that we spent so much time building up that. And then when we realized the giant flaw in it, aka we cannot get a UPS truck, we had to go with mine. And I mean, all in all, the film wasn't bad, but I mean, the story could have been a lot better. And, you know, the foundation of every good narrative comes with a good story. And my story just wasn't very unique. And I mean, it ended up being a pretty meh project. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good. It was very meh. And I mean, if there's like anything that I got out of that project, it's just like, I should have, or I should have spent more time on that story in English, or two, we should have taken my partner's idea and maybe reworked it in a way where we were not in need of a UPS truck. But I mean, life goes on.
Do you guys drive? Yes. Have you ever had the experience where your blinker is going and it lines up with the blinker in front of you, like the car in front of you? And you think, like, this is kind of cool right now? Like, it's kind of too bad I'm the only person here. Like, and then have you ever had the experience where, like, maybe your blinker lines up with your music or to your windshield wipers and you're like, oh, like, this is awesome? You've had this? You'll start noticing it if you haven't. Like, now it's going to bother you when things don't sync up. But our narrative was about this guy he was having this really bad day, and his blinker just wasn't aligning with anything. And so it was just kind of like, he was like stuck in traffic, and it was really annoying him. And then he's like late for his meeting, and terrible things happen to him, and all the while the blinker just doesn't line up with the things in his life. However, he sees this girl rollerblading to the beat of his blinker, and he falls in love immediately because they're in sync. And they have this like great cute dialogue, and then she gets in the car and they drive away, and that was it.
Go ahead.
When does it get the most stressful?
Documentary.
Documentary.
For junior year, at least.
That's your third quarter.
That's when your schedule really has to meet up. You know, if you do sports outside, I'm assuming some of you do sports because you're an AM. This is where it's really going to be difficult to find time for the project because you need to find 3 people to interview, and you have to schedule all of that and do photo shoots or film shoots, and it's really stressful. But once you're done with it, it's like the biggest sigh of relief you'll ever have.
Actually, I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to say narrative for film. Absolutely. Because, I don't know, I'm one of those people that's a control freak. I'm the first to admit it. So when I had self-portrait and conceptual, where you work alone, I was like, yes, everything is in my control. Whereas if you'll soon realize that in documentary and narrative, when you're working with, you know, a partner and actors and, well, plural actors, you'll probably have more than one. Even if it's for like a snippet of your film, like coordinating all of those schedules. Like, I mean, there were multiple times where we would show up to location and I would get a call from my actor. I'm sick. No, you're not sick. You just don't want to come. That was a nightmare for me. So, I mean, coordinating all of that, it gets really, really stressful because unfortunately, a lot of high schoolers don't have the incentive to come and help you out with a project unless they're getting paid. And when you ask your friends, hi, can you act in my film? They don't always take that commitment as seriously as you are personally taking your project. And that was probably the most stressful thing I had to deal with.
So having said that, you should probably think about how can we have like the least amount of actors, like 1 or 2, great. How can we shoot all in one day? So all people just need to show up once. Like these types of questions could be really valuable when you're planning your story.
That's amazing advice. Go with as few actors as possible. Please, just do it.
We try to actually limit that in our story writing too.
Good. That's good. We had like 5. It was horrible.
Okay, so
I was wondering, how's the grading?
How's the grading?
Yeah.
Well, I actually can't speak to that anymore because I haven't.
As
the
long
teachers
as you
are all
fulfill the
different.
requirements, I
Yeah.
mean, you're going to get a good grade on it. If you're the type who likes to slack off and turn things in late, I mean, you can turn things in late here and still get some credit, but it's just not going to be good. You have to be on top of your work here.
You'll know if you did a bad job. You'll know it. You don't need a teacher to tell you if
I
you
mean,
did a
if
bad
you're
job.
like, okay, here it is, you're probably not going to get a good grade, you know, if you're not enthusiastic when you're turning it in. If you think, you know, you really put hard work into it, that probably is a good sign.
As long as you manage your time wisely, turned in a project, that's important. I had some kids my year that just didn't turn in anything and hope that it would be okay. If you manage your time wisely, turn in something and know that you worked as hard as you could, you'll be fine. Like I said, like, you don't need a teacher to tell you you should have done that better. You will know.
Yeah.
let's move on. Kevin, this is for all of you. What are you gonna do now, or where are you now, and what are you doing now? Kevin.
Okay, I'm heading off to Loyola Marymount for my first year, and I'm going to be a multimedia arts major. So it's basically all the stuff we've been doing in freestyle already, except in college. And actually, the first time I walked into the classroom on one of the tours, I felt like I was at freestyle again, so that was pretty comforting, I have to say. I haven't had an experience in the classroom yet. I'm actually leaving today to go down to LA, so I'll get an update on that sometime.
Like I said, I'm an English literature major, and I go to Chapman University down in Orange County. And yeah, one of the biggest things I took away from freestyle was the English program here. Before I came to freestyle, English was something I just did because I had to, because you need 4 years of it. I wasn't bad at it, I wasn't great at it, but when I entered freestyle, and because honestly, the books you read here, I did not read until my upper division literature classes at a university. I didn't. Like, do you guys, oh wait, I think you read that senior year. Well, you haven't read anything yet, but you will read books that I personally didn't read until my upper division literature class at Chapman. And like, you read very, very different books than people read. You know, you read experimental literature, you read graphic novels. Like, I've met so many people in my college class that sit down and they look at a graphic novel and they're like, I don't understand this. I don't know what's going on. Like, Mr. Greco really fuses both traditional lit and, you know, lit you wouldn't read every day and just meshes it so perfectly. And yeah, that's definitely what I took away from the most, and I'm really glad I'm still learning it in college.
I think that arts are really exciting when you can combine them with something else. So I don't see like the ability to create like as an end, right? Like you can make films, like that's awesome, but combined with another interest, like it's kind of monumental, right? You can convey a lot more. It's like really exciting. I just got back from a trip to Bhutan. I was one of 4 to go fly drones with the Prime Minister to do medical delivery. So the problem in Bhutan is that it's in the Himalayas, and there's one central hospital in the like main city of Thimphu, but outside that, it's like these small health units. And they do see like 8 to 15 people a day, but let's say someone takes a blood sample and they need to know if they have a disease. The time it takes for a car to deliver the blood sample, get it tested, and then come back with the results is like disastrous. But a drone can do it very easily. And so we were just there. And I was there with a camera. So I went with 2 engineers, the founder, and then I was there shooting. And it was really cool to be able to combine my interest with tech and like high tech and like humanitarian things and photography.
Anybody, this is a good documentary idea if you have the money to fly to Bhutan.
Yeah, drones, you know, they're not that expensive. It's cool.
Are you still in college?
I'm still in college. I'm at NYU, and I have a year left, which is cool. NYU is really special because being in a city, you can intern and be part of like the real world as much as you go to school. So if any of you read BuzzFeed, I'm an intern there. I'm really excited about it. But I think that's like a big benefit of NYU while you're thinking about colleges.
So this applies to Alana and Danny more. So how did freestyle help you outside of freestyle? Well, Kevin, you're not there yet.
Well, actually, I've used freestyle skills already outside.
Okay, so go ahead.
Like, my cousin just got married over the summer, and she knew I went to freestyle, and she asked if I could help with some of the wedding photography. So before they got married, I kind of did this photo shoot with them on a beach for like the invitation cards and stuff. And I took all those pictures and I photoshopped them and I gave them the best ones, and then they went ahead and printed them out. So like, I mean, these things are useful not just for professional, but also for personal things if you want. Yeah, they didn't pay me. She's my cousin. I'm not going to do that.
He's back here like this.
Yeah. But yeah, that was, it was great to have the skills that I learned from freestyle there.
Do you feel, since you're going into all the stuff in college, how confident do you feel you're going to be okay there?
Like 100%. I mean, I've already talked with some people at the orientation, this early summer orientation, and they, you know, they'd learned a little bit about Photoshop and Illustrator, but I was kind of like, you guys know anything else about it? You know, so I felt like I was just kind of a level above. So I felt like I could be teaching part of the class instead of learning in it. So yeah, I'm pretty confident.
Alana, how did freestyle help you where you're at?
2 ways. Well, 2 big ways. It's helped me in many ways, but these 2 jump out. One was, I remember my first day in freestyle English. I had a different English teacher at the time. I had Mr. Jack. This is the year before Mr. Greco hopped on board. He straight up said, you know, if you write me a cliche 5-paragraph essay, you're not going to do well in this class. And sure enough, my first essay at Freestyle, I got a C, because guess what I did? I wrote a cliche 5-paragraph essay. Wow. It was awful. It was awful looking back on it. Luckily, I had the chance to rewrite it and redeem myself. But I think that just taking traditional academics and making it in a way that's more creative and unique is the biggest way that Freestyle has helped me. Because on the first day of your college writing class, and you'll all have to take one, your teacher will say, I swear, if you all turn, because this happened to me, my Professor Kevin O'Brien of my Studies in Literary Tradition class went to the front of the class and said, if any of you turn in a high school traditional cliche 5-paragraph essay in which all of you sound the same, you're not going to get any higher than a D in this class. He straight up said that. And then I was like, wow, this is deja vu, because I heard this on the first day of Freestyle. And of course, all of my college classmates around me were like, oh, but I went through 4 years of traditional high school and all we learned how to do was 5-paragraph essays. And I'm like, I don't need to sweat it. And I was the only freshman that got an A in that class. And I attribute that to Freestyle 100%. Yeah. And number 2, I think the biggest way that Freestyle helped me was really determining what I wanted to do. Because, I mean, I came into this program being like, I want to be a filmmaker. That's all I want to do. I want to make films. And I had a lot of fun in film class, but the number one thing that it made me realize, and I'm so grateful for this, is I don't like working in teams. I don't like it. I don't like the stress of other people. Like I said, I'm a control freak. If somebody doesn't do what I want them to do, I'm like, no, stop. Why are you doing that? And guess what the film industry is? You have hordes of people working together on one final outcome. So I love the hobby of making films. I love the art of it. My boyfriend's a filmmaker, and I love hearing all of his stories about days on set. I knew that I did not have the personality for it, straight up. But I really found my calling in English. Keep your eyes, keep an open mind to the other programs that we offer here. We don't just, English isn't just offered here for the college state requirements. It's offered here at Freestyle because it's done differently. Same with design. You can take art at Los Altos or Mountain View. It's offered here because we do it differently. You might be in here saying, no, I want to be a web designer and I want to be a filmmaker, and that's totally fine. Just really take advantage of the other ones that are offered here, because I think it will surprise you.
So again, when you combine the ability to make something with anything else, literally anything else, it's cool. Best way to be cool is do something with what you like. So I study computers. I study human-computer interaction at NYU, and it's a big problem that when you go to events in tech, have you guys had this experience? You live in Mountain View, where you go to events in tech and you might not see women or any sort of racial minorities or anyone from the LGBTQ community, and you're like, wow, this is very, or anyone not between the ages of 20 and 25. It's tech can be very homogeneous, and I thought this is a problem, and it affects me because sometimes when I encounter people in tech, they don't know how to treat me. They forget that women could also probably code, or can have basic understanding of basic concepts. And it's really frustrating not to be taken seriously. So I started a project where, you've seen Humans of New York? No. Yes, I do Hackers of New York. And so it's the same format, photo, like I learned at Freestyle, and little short blurb. And it's spreading, which is really cool. So being able to create, and have one site can get other people excited about the same thing in their own cities. We're now in 13 cities in 9 countries. And we've been featured on really cool places like TechCrunch and Business Insider, Inc. magazine, and it's been really, really cool. And that's all just the ability to create something that you can share, and that's really what Freestyle teaches you, is this tool to be passionate and be an advocate for something else that you care about.
Now, I asked you a bunch of questions and you answered them, but are there things you want to say that I didn't ask about?
I think I just need to just really emphasize and reiterate, like, take advantage of the fact that you're here with amazing equipment right behind you, amazing equipment on either side of you, and really great mentors. Because like I said, you will never get the chance to work in this kind of environment with as much freedom as you're going to have here. It's not going to happen. Like I said, my boyfriend's a filmmaker. This equipment, the film equipment, is so expensive to rent, and you have complete access to it. That's probably the most like creative and technological freedom you're ever going to have in your life. So take advantage of it now, make what you want to make now, and make something that you're going to be really proud of, because the next time you want to make something really, really fun or really, really awesome, it's going to be thousands of dollars more, and it's not going to be as easy to get access to this stuff. You're really fortunate to be at a place like this, so really just reap the benefits. I know you've only been here for 4 days. You have a nice long career ahead of you, and I'm really happy for all of you that you've chosen this program. And I'm really glad that Freestyle is a place where everybody wants to be here. Like Mountain View and Los Altos people are there because they have to, because you have to go to school. You're here because you want to be here. So run with it.
I'm really excited for you guys. I can't wait to see like what you make. Like I can't wait to like check the website and like see your work. I'm super excited.
I'd have to say that junior year is kind of a warm-up to what you're going to do in your senior year, because each of the projects during your junior year is kind of mimicked during your senior year. Like you have the documentary junior, and then you have a profile senior year. You have 2 narratives, you know, one in junior, one in senior. So the thing is that this is definitely, sometimes you might find it boring or difficult here, but you have to realize that this is like training for what you're going to be doing senior year, which is, it's more intense, but the work that you're going to create in senior year is also more fun and more rewarding when you get to show off, like, check out what I just did. Like, that's not, no. Some professional artist who's actually being paid didn't do that. I did that for free at a school. But, it's kind of, it's really nice to know that what you're doing can really turn into great results. So
I have tips. You're going to take a lot of photos, and they're probably going to be awesome. Vogue, like Italian Vogue, takes photo submissions online for their blog. They put a Vogue stamp on your photo, and they publish it on their website. Having that in your portfolio rocks. It's called Photo Vogue, and like .it, I think that's Italy. Like, definitely do that. Also, SF MoMA does the same thing. They take submissions for their Tumblr, and they'll publish your work, and you get tons of hits. Plus, like, a nice, like, oh, in my portfolio, I have the MoMA. That's, like, do that.
Definitely start building your portfolio from day one. Don't wait until it's senior year and college admissions are, like, 4 weeks away. You're at the perfect place to build a portfolio. I mean, luckily, I was one of those people that didn't have to worry about building portfolios because I'm an English major. But, I mean, I had to submit writing. I mean, this is definitely the place to build that. And I mean, all of your teachers are willing to help you do that. That's another thing. Ask for help when you need it. You don't know everything. Sorry. You don't know everything. You're going to learn all of the things you need to know, but ask for help. Ask help from each other. Ask help from your teachers. Because like I said, like, you might as well just ask the questions now when you have the equipment available and you have the help available, because later on down the road it's going to be way more expensive and way harder to do so.